One of the common questions is, where do I buy my car insurance? What's the best place to go? And today we're going to specifically talk more about, should you purchase car insurance from a bank or from a dealership or from a local agent? Now, there's three different types of policies that we're talking about. Technically there's four, because you can purchase your own online as well. In all honesty, that's probably the same thing as buying from a bank or a car dealership. I'm not saying that all of them are going to fall in this category, but I would fair to say that 3/4 of them, or at least the majority of banks and dealerships, are going to be very, very similar. So think of it this way. Most banks, when you go to a bank and you get all the financial stuff and everything's done there, they handle your money. But insurance is a way different animal. And yes, those licensed agents are licensed and they did take a test. They did pass what's a difficult exam, and that's super powerful. But unless they specifically only do insurance, I would say be very, very careful when you're looking at a bank. Let's dive a little bit further in and explain that a little bit more. So your banker, if you're going to the bank and talking to a person, if they are multi-line, multi-everything, and they're doing all of the pieces, it gets a little bit complicated because they can't keep up with all of the regulations, all of the changes, all of the rules. If we're just doing basic coverage, anyone can do that. You can go online and do that. You can go to an agency and do that. You can pretty much go anywhere if you want. Where it starts to get a little more complicated is when you decide, should I carry this much coverage or shouldn't I carry this much coverage? Should I file a claim, or who do I talk to when I have a claim? Having that advice and having that advisor or agent available might be okay through the bank. They may be available, but 9 times out of 10, they're using an 800 number. So they're just gonna do a quick shop, get you a policy set up, give you an 800 number to call if you have any questions. That really could make sense as the bank trying to earn some extra funds, but you'll notice why banks don't do this anymore. A lot of them have stepped back from doing this because they're setting themselves up for a lot of possible lawsuits, because there's what's called errors in omission. There's a lot of things that can have changed, and if they're not up to date with them and they say the wrong thing, they give the wrong coverage, which does happen in the industry quite a bit. Not having the right agent advice can open themselves up to lawsuits. They don't really prefer to do that. That makes the bank look bad on your end as far as a consumer. If you're not going to take care of me on the insurance and you're going to screw me over here, why would I stay with you with my funds? There's a lot of risk that banks are taking by doing this. I've personally had some experience with a large bank that did this. I'll kind of give you a little bit of that experience. Before I dive into this, if you are shopping for any type of insurance, whether it's auto, home, commercial, life insurance, renters insurance, all of those pieces, I'll put a link in the description below where you can work with a local agent that does shop multiple companies, very similar and actually probably more extended from a bank where you have more options, but then they're specifically licensed in that category. The larger banks that I've seen, I've had the opportunity to speak with the manager, and I'll be honest with you, they're no different than when I was starting off in the industry, kind of just hot-headed and whatever you want to do, you do, because there's so much coming in, we've got so many customers, there's so much business, whatever, we can't screw it up. That mentality doesn't get you far, and I know that puts a very bad negative inclination on that bank. The unfortunate part is that's common in the industry. Some agents are that way, where it's just, let's get anything in the books and move fast. There's a speed that I want to go, but there's also a level of service that you have to provide. The banker, what they did is they were exclusive with several companies, but one main company stood out. They get appointments with larger insurance companies so that they focus on those specific companies. Now, don't get me wrong, they usually have access to some of them. And yes, there are laws that they can't just tell you this as the only option, but there's legal steering and different ways that they can explain things that make sense to you. For example, there's multiple companies that are really good with high-end homes. There's multiple companies that are not so good with high-end homes, but they're cheaper. So we've got a couple options, and I can explain it in 2 different ways. I can tell you, this is the best fit for you. It's not necessarily the best price, but this is the best coverage, the best claim service, the best everything. This is the route I would go. If you're looking for cheaper, we have other options, but I just want to give you what I would do and let you decide. Versus, this is the only route that we should go. There are other options, but this is going to be the best one. Right? Not giving you your options and allow you to choose. It's more of like, let's just go this route. Yeah, there are some other things, but none of them are good. That being said, you're going to find very few banks that even offer that anymore. Now, going to the dealership is a little bit different. Sometimes, if the dealership does this correctly, it's an upgrade from what we just talked about. A lot of the times, agents will be implemented into the car dealership. So that if you go to the car dealership, you're actually going to get a good deal on your car, hopefully. Great deal. I'm looking for a good minivan for our kids. And if you do that, then they may have somebody from an agency that does something like what we do. They can shop you multiple companies. You walk into the dealer, you buy a car, they say, do you want to talk to the insurance guy? He's sitting over there, or we can pick up the phone and call him. And they do what I would recommend that you do with most agents. I actually have a friend that works at a company that does work with dealerships, and they have decent intentions, but it's fast, move, go, sell. That industry has very little upside for you as the customer because it's only pressure, and it's how do we get you to buy? It's how do we get our prices better? How do we get our commissions? How do we get our company to grow? Not how do we service people and manage their policies and create a relationship to where they want to work with us. The goal of insurance, at least as far as an agency, as far as a financial profit design, is how do we get customers? How do we get them to love us? How do we get to serve them in a way that they don't want to leave us and price isn't the factor? Because if we give you everything that you're looking for, we have a decent price, and even though the next guy might be $50 to $100 cheaper, there's no reason to leave because you don't want to give up that level of service and that commitment to you as a consumer. There's a fine line. Eventually, one day, we're going to tip that scaling point to where we won't be as great a service because we may have too many people that have joined. Now, it's not today. We can service and maintain, but it's just more money that we have to put into the business to have that higher level of service. We can look at many of the reviews, look at USAA, look at State Farm, look at Allstate, look at Farm Bureau. All of these companies are starting to decline because when the rates changed, some of them forgot or didn't follow quickly enough or didn't change the rates quickly enough, and they almost had too many consumers, which downgraded the quality of service. Now they raised the price, and now it's like a double whammy. They lost some of the service levels, they're slow on claims, and then their prices had to go up. That's not really a win in most people's book. Going to a dealership, it does make sense that if that agency that's partnered with the dealership is a good fit. There's another way that they can do that, which is they can partner with agencies. For example, they can say, well, everything's ringing through this insurance company. You just got to know if you trust them, because they're going to have that ability, like we just said, to shop it. And it's specific agents that are specifically designed for insurance. Now, if a bank is doing that, that's great. But most dealerships I see do that. Most banks, at least the banks that I know of, I don't see them do that. And then the last piece, we've already talked it over, is going directly to the agent. That's clear cut. You know, as long as you can find the trust and they're knowledgeable, if they've got good reviews online, if they have more than 4-star, but there's going to be customers that don't love you. It's just part of the game. I've lost a customer the other day because they were mad at the company, and I couldn't explain it to them in a way that made sense, right? So I didn't do my position, at least I blame myself for not being able to communicate that, hey, I get that you're frustrated with this company, but let me help you. And they just saw it as me being the same as the company. Even though we did have better options, we just never got to that point because they were just too frustrated. So at that level, I may get a bad review. So at that level as a company, you might see some of those reviews, and it's common. Now we've got to decide, a little bit more complicated, is do we go to an independent agency, which is an agency that can shop multiple companies? The benefit is massive. The downfall, there are a few. And then we also have the option of going directly to an exclusive agent that works with only one company. These two companies usually don't compete with each other. Although Allstate started to let you do it, and Nationwide went all the way to independent, Progressive went mostly independent, and even Geico is starting to open up independent. They're starting to see that the business over here, keeping and maintaining the customers, is very strong with these independent agents. That doesn't mean that your exclusive, your State Farm and your individual Allstate and your individual AAA, even though they offer an independent, are not a better fit. So there's kind of a pick and choose between those. That's really the next point. If you want to learn more about the difference between going to an independent agent versus going to a direct agent, I'm going to link a video here that goes into the difference between those. If you are shopping for car insurance, like I said, there's a link in the description below. Otherwise, if you want to learn more about the coverages you should be picking, I've got my Car Insurance 101 that should be helpful. I'm Mark with Think Insurance. I'll see you in the next one.